All right, let's move from the financial economy over to the real economy and pricing pressures that we are starting to see. Sozzi, you flagged this for us. Chipotle announcing that it's going to raise prices across the board, and maybe not a huge surprise given what they have announced on the wage side of the equation.
Not at all. We just talked to Chipotle's CEO, Brian Niccol, last week, and they have been at the forefront in the fast food industry of paying higher wages. Here's what Niccol told us.
The rise in demand has been quick, and as a result, it's put pressure on us to hire more people to run our restaurants. And then obviously we're going to continue building restaurants. So we need great people in our restaurants to grow, not just for today's growth, but our future growth. So, you probably saw we raised our wages now on average to $15 an hour. In about, 3 years, you can find yourself being a restaurant general manager making well over $100,000. So, there's a tremendous opportunity for financial growth with us.
And Niccol, after a couple of years, like Niccol mentioned, you could be managing a bunch of Chipotle restaurants and being your own, for the most part, your own entrepreneur, pulling in over $100,000. Now, obviously, that comes at a cost to a Chipotle. Hence, at the Baird Tech Conference yesterday, you had CFO Jack Hartung and Niccol explain why they raised menu prices about 4%. Now, this comes on top of them raising prices for digital orders earlier this year. And the shares of Chipotle yesterday rose about 2%. You see them higher here in the pre-market. And I think investors are understanding this is a good thing. Niccol told us that the lines are back in Chipotle. People are out there mobile, getting more mobile again, and they're willing to sit inside Chipotle restaurant and eat. This suggests pricing power. You take that with the fact that you have Chipotle opening 200 plus restaurants this year, having close to $2 billion in total liquidity, on the path to converting to 1,000 drive-through locations by 2025. You still got a very compelling story here, Julie and Myles.
Yeah, I'm going to take it from Chipotle to macro for a moment here because, as Chipotle talks about these up to 4% increases in prices, and as we talk about whether inflation is transitory, it would be hard to envision a situation where Chipotle would then raise prices another 4% later this year or 8% later this year. Chipotle is accustomed to doing these sorts of annual price increases, but not really more often than that and with that kind of magnitude. So that, sort of speaks to the idea it's transitory. And of course, this also reminds me to mention again that we've got our consumer prices out tomorrow and that the estimate is now for 3.5% year over year core increases in that CPI, which is, of course, expected to be hot because of all of the things we've talked about. I also want to mention inflation is not just a U.S. phenomenon. Of course, China just reported overnight that its producer prices were up 9%, which is the biggest increase in 12 years. But its consumer prices, interestingly, were just up 1.3%. So this bigger inflation question is something that we obviously continue to be fixated on for good reason.
Yeah, and to your point about the macro, Julie, I mean, this is an extremely, and Neil Dutta sent a great note yesterday about how the labor market is acting exactly how you would think. I think the economy is also in this textbook example of the relationship between supply, demand, prices, and inflation pressures. And the question the Fed is grappling with is how long does this last? But costs go up for Chipotle on the labor side. They pay people more in response to that market's demand for what it costs to hire people. And in turn, to maintain their margins, they pass it on to consumers. Now, consumers may also be getting wage increases as they respond to those labor market dynamics, so on and so forth. But this is, again, a little bit of a messy process, but it is exactly textbook. And so, I don't know, point to the Econ 101 thesis or syllabus, whatever that is. I don't know. I never got through Econ 101. I decided I want to be a business major anyway. So we're learning on the fly here. But this is, again, straightforward examples of what they teach you in school.